Very good evening to one and all person here. Today we are going to discuss about the mechanical ventilation. So what is actually mechanical ventilation? This is the physical devices we are using some devices for the delivery of oxygen to the patients. So what are the common indications for which we are using routinely mechanical ventilation? This is basically to treat the hypoxia. So for the treatment of hypoxia, whether it is type 1 or type 2, this is the most common indication worldwide for the common usage of mechanical ventilation. Other than that, during the elective surgery, we are using elective mechanical ventilation. And to protect the airway, especially during some road traffic accident or head injury, for the protection of airway, we are electively intubating the patient, and especially to relieve the upper airway obstruction, we are mechanically intubating the patients. So to understand the basics of mechanical ventilation, we need to understand the common mechanism of hypoxia and normal ventilatory mechanism happening in the respiratory system. So we in the previous session we have discussed about the definition of hypoxia and different methods of mechanisms underlying the hypoxia. Commonly, the hypoxia is termed as partial oxygen pressure in the artery less than 60 millimeter of mercury, even when the FiO2 delivery is more than 60%. So, to the person having hypoxia, the most common mechanism we have explained is commonly reduced in the FiO2 from the environment, decreased diffusion across the alveolar membrane, increased shunt mechanism, that is the pulmonary artery containing the deoxygenated blood which is not ventilated, and directly deoxygenated blood is transferred to the pulmonary veins, and ventilation perfusion mismatch. So there are many mechanisms and etiology for these conditions. So all of these conditions finally leading to the hypoxia. So to correct the hypoxia, we need to either increases the FiO2, or we need to correct the underlying etiology, or we can increases the positive end expiratory pressure in order to overcome the pathological changes happening in the ventilatory. So this is normally basis of the mechanical ventilation. So normally we are having two types of mechanical ventilation. So this mechanical ventilation can be divided into two broader categories as negative pressure ventilation and positive pressure ventilation. So what is the difference between the negative and positive pressure ventilation? Normally, this is the lung alveoli, and we are having the pleura surrounding the alveoli. So normally there will be the pressure inside the alveolar, which is AI, intra-alveolar pressure, and we have the intrapleural pressure. So we can write like this. We have the intra-alveolar pressure and we have the intrapleural pressure. In normal lung, we used to have the negative pressure present in the intrapleural space, and some kind of positive pressure is present in the alveoli. So normally we are having the most compliant lung in our body, which is helpful in maintaining the ventilation of humans. So what is compliance of the lung? Normally, compliance is defined as the stretchability, the ability of the lung to stretch to the maximum to accommodate the maximum amount of air within the lung. So this is mainly basis for normal ventilation happening in the alveoli. So normally during inspiration, patient is taking the air, which is the active process. So the air is entering into the alveoli and it has to diffuse through the alveolar membrane and reaching the pulmonary artery and pulmonary veins. So basically we are having the normal lung compliance, which is equal to delta volume divided by delta pressure. So that is the difference between the volume changes happening in the lung and the difference in the pressure changes happening in the lung. So what is the normal volume changes happening in the lung during an inspiration? So we can calculate the total respiratory compliance. So that is CRS, which is the volume difference divided by pressure difference. So during inspiration, we are inspiring some amount of air. So the volume present at the end of inspiration minus volume present under the end of expiration. This is the normal volume difference happening in alveoli. Likewise, we are having the same pressure difference during the end of inspiration and during the end of expiration. This is the formula we use to calculate the compliance. In this formula, we can substitute this with the different values. So normally the lung compliance is directly proportional to the volume change and indirectly proportional to the pressure change. When there is a high pressure change, we used to have the low compliance. So normally there is a pressure change. This delta pressure is equal to intra-alveolar pressure minus intra-pleural pressure. Why we used to have the negative pleural pressure is the basic behind the positive air compliance in most of the human beings. Normally, the chest wall is going for the during inspiration, the intercostal muscles are going for contraction, which is pulling the chest wall, causing the expansion of the chest wall. Due to the normally the chest wall and lungs are not other to each other. There is a differentiating space between the lung and chest wall is the alveolar pleural space. So during the inspiration, we used to have the increased space in the pleural cavity. So we will have the negative pressure happening in the pleural cavity because pleura is the being closed space. Whenever the space is increased, automatically the volume of air present inside the space will be distributed equally through the expanded space. So for example, 5 ml of air is present in the between inside the pleural cavity. During the inspiration, the pleural cavity is expanding. So normally the same amount of air has to be distributed over the whole expanded pleural cavity. So automatically the intrapleural pressure will go for negatively. So the intrapleural pressure is most of the time negative, around -5 centimeter of water. So normally the delta pressure is present around the compliance of the lung is almost is +5 centimeter of water. This is because the lung compliance is improved by increasing the negative intrapulmonary pressure rather than increasing the positive intra-alveolar pressure. So we can increase the lung compliance in two ways. Either we can increase the negative pressure in the pleural cavity or we can increase the positive pressure in the alveoli. This is the basic of positive and negative mechanical ventilation. In negative mechanical ventilation, we are increasing the negative intrapleural pressure. In positive mechanical ventilation, we are increasing the positive intra-alveolar pressure. So in both the mechanism, net results is increase in the compliance. So whenever there is an increase in the compliance, it automatically reflects that there will be increase in the volume. So in this formula, the end inspiratory and end expiratory difference is nothing but the tidal volume. So normally, whenever there is an increase in the compliance of the lung, there will be increase in the tidal volume. So automatically, increasing the tidal volume will increase the oxygenation of tissue. So this will helpful in the correction of hypoxia. So in so we can show the method of. So in this picture, we can differentiate the negative and positive pressure ventilatory mechanism. In negative pressure ventilation, which was practiced in the 1940s times, during which there is a machine called iron lung machine. This machine is placed only over the chest wall, which is creating the negative pressure inside the vacuum present in the machine. So it will create the positive pull over the chest wall, which in expand the intrapleural cavity. So this will further reduces the intrapleural pressure. So the net result is we are getting the excessive negative intrapleural pressure. So it will automatically increases the compliance of the lung. Now, but nowadays we are using the positive pressure ventilation. This is the most common mechanism we are using, in which we are delivering the positive pressure through the mechanical ventilator into the alveoli, by which we are increasing the intra-alveolar pressure. So the net result is the same. We are increasing the compliance of the lung. So this will increases the oxygenation. So what is the normal lung volumes and normal lung pressure? So in order to understand the method of mechanism of ventilation happening in the through the mechanical ventilation, we need to understand the normal lung volumes and normal lung pressures. So normal lung volumes can be easily dissipated via the simple image. So normally we are having the tidal volume, which is the normal air entering inside the lung during inspiration and expiration. Then we are having the inspiratory reserve volume. We are having the expiratory reserve volume. So what is tidal volume? Tidal volume is normally the air entering into the lung during inspiration and expiration, which is around 500 ml. Then we have the inspiratory reserve volume of 3100 ml, which is the maximum air that we can inspire with the maximum effort of inspiration. Likewise, we have the expiratory reserve volume, which is the maximum air which can expire with the effort of maximum expiration. And also, we are having some volumes which cannot be expired even with the forced expiration. That is nothing but our residual volume. So the residual volume is the amount of air that is around 1200 ml, which is present in the lung alveoli throughout our lifespan, which is helpful in maintaining the functional residual capacity of the lung. So what is functional residual capacity? This is nothing but the combination of expiratory reserve volume and residual volume. So normally capacity is the combination of two or more volumes. So the first we can remember like tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume is known as inspiratory capacity. Likewise, if you add the expiratory reserve volume with the inspiratory capacity, this is nothing but vital capacity. If you also add the residual volume with the vital capacity, this is nothing but our total lung capacity. So the normal inspiratory capacity is around 3600 ml and the vital capacity is around 4800 ml. So the total lung capacity will is around 6000 ml, nothing but 6 liter. So this functional residual capacity is the basic for normal oxygenation happening in our lung. So the alveoli has to be expanded even at the end of expiration. Normally, the air is entering into the alveoli. So we have discussed this already, and it has to diffuse through the alveolar capillary membrane, and anything abnormality happening in this basic mechanism will result in the hypoxia. So the amount of air present in the alveoli determine the alveolar oxygen pressure. So whenever the alveolar oxygen pressure is high, you can get increased amount of arterial oxygen pressure. So in order to understand these two basic pressure, we are having the normal formula to calculate this. So the alveolar oxygen pressure is nothing but is equal to FiO2 into pressure difference between the water and inspired air minus PaCO2 by respiratory quotient. This is the Bose equation which is helpful in calculating the PaO2. So if you need to correct the hypoxia, either you can increase the FiO2 or you can increase the pressure support to increase the ventilation. So if you increases the FiO2, automatically the PaO2 will increase. This is the basics behind the normal oxygen delivery devices like nasal mask, nasal pharynx, and even high flow nasal O2. We are mainly concentrating on increasing the FiO2, by which we are increasing the diffusion capacity and increasing the PaO2, which in turn correcting the hypoxia. But beyond such limit, we cannot correct the hypoxia. So in order to correct the hypoxia, we need to increase the pressure support along with FiO2, which will correct the other abnormalities like ventilation perfusion mismatch and shunt mechanism and diffusion defects. So for these to happen, we need to increase the pressure inside the alveoli. So the pressure inside the alveoli is the intra-alveolar pressure. So through the positive pressure ventilation, we are increasing the amount of pressure present inside the alveoli to be increased. So normally at the end of expiration, some amount of air will be present inside the alveoli, which is the functional residual capacity. This is the volume helpful in creating a pressure inside the alveoli, which is nothing but our positive end expiratory pressure. So the PEEP is nothing but the amount of pressure present within the alveoli at the end of expiration. What is the basic for to keep the normal PEEP? So this is helpful in maintaining the functional residual capacity. If you maintain the functional residual capacity, it will prevent the alveolar collapse. So if the all alveoli are open, this all open alveoli will have the increased functional residual capacity. So this will increases the diffusion of gases even during expiration. So normally we are concentrating on increasing the oxygenation of the blood during, especially in expiratory phase, because most of the time, even whether the patient is having any clinical condition or not, we are oxygenating the blood inside the arteries during inspiration with the help of diffusion of the normal inspired air. But some amount of residual air is always present in the alveoli. So we are increasing the concentration of oxygen in the residual air, residual volume, or we are increasing the functional residual capacity in order to increases the diffusion, especially during the expiration and the gap between the inspiration and expiration, which is the main mechanism behind the increased oxygenation of the blood, especially with the help of mechanical ventilators and non-invasive positive pressure ventilations. So in any pathologies like pulmonary, so to understand the basic pathology behind the hypoxia, we are having two types of hypoxia. One is hypoxemic hypoxia, which is nothing but the second type 1 respiratory failure, and second one is hypercapnic hypoxia. So this is the ventilatory failure. For example, in restrictive lung diseases, normally we are having restrictive lung diseases because of the neuromuscular problems or chest wall deformities or interstitial lung disease. In all these conditions like neuromuscular and chest wall deformity, there will be reduced chest wall expansion. So automatically you will have reduced negative intrapulmonary pressure. So finally it will reduce the compliance. Likewise, in interstitial lung disease and pulmonary edema, there will be decreased surface area as well as decreased diffusion across the alveolar membrane. So it will decreases the compliance. So in all restrictive lung disease, the compliance of the lung will be reduced. Likewise, in obstructive lung disease, there will be difficulty in expiration. But in restrictive lung disease, we are having difficulty in inspiration, because the chest wall is not able to completely expand, as well as the oxygen is not able to completely diffuse across the alveolar membrane. But what happening in the obstructive lung disease like emphysema? In emphysema, we are having the destruction of all alveolar membrane. So what is happening with this mechanism? Normally, during inspiration, alveoli has to expand. This is done by the chest wall expansion, which increasing the negative intrapleural pressure. But during expiration, which is the normal mechanism, and this is passive mechanism, there is no other mechanism in our body which is mainly happening by the passive method. During expiration, lung will collapse with the help of surface tension present inside the alveoli, because alveolar membrane are lined by the some amount of fluid. So this will create the some amount of pressure which is termed as surface tension, which will help in the collapse of the alveoli, which is otherwise called elastic recoiling of the alveoli. So this will cause us the normal passive method of expiration. But during obstructive lung diseases, there will be destruction of the normal alveolar membrane. This in turn reduces the surface tension. So automatically, the normal elastic recoil capacity will be reduced. So it will increases the functional residual capacity, or in turn increases the compliance of the lung. That means the lung is able to accommodate more amount of volume inside the lung, but it cannot cause the normal expiration because the alveolar membrane has been destructed. So in order to help the expiration, we are converting the passive expiration into active one. That's why we are having the increased activation of the accessory muscles of expiration. So we are having the increased work of breathing as well as increased accessory muscles contraction. So these are the common signs present in the COPD and emphysema patients. So net results is patient cannot expire. So this will result in the accumulation of more CO2 inside the alveoli. So normally the alveolar gas is having O2 plus CO2. So whenever the alveolar membrane is intact, all the CO2 will diffuse freely and it will enter in the expiration. So whenever there is an increase in CO2, it will automatically reduces the alveolar O2. So this will result in the type 2 respiratory failure. So what we are going to do is we are increasing the positive pressure or increasing the functional residual capacity in type 1 by increasing the compliance. So we are increasing the PaO2. So this will correct the hypoxia. But in type 2 respiratory failure, we don't need to increase the FiO2 or we don't need to increase the pressure, because the problem here is not with the oxygen. This is because of the increased accumulation of CO2. So we need to increase the excretion of CO2. That can be done by increasing the respiratory rate and as well as decreasing the tidal volume. So by increasing the respiratory rate and decreasing the tidal volume, automatically you can expect the elimination of increasing the respiratory rate as well as increasing the tidal volume. That is the minute ventilation. So this will helpful in expiration of the all accumulated PaCO2. So finally, you will correct the type 2 hypoxia, that is type 2 respiratory failure. So this is the basic mechanism behind the compliance. So normally we have discussed about the normal lung volumes. Then we will discuss about the normal lung pressures. So what is the connection between the pressure and volume inside the lung? So this is explained by the normal compliance curve. Normally, volume and this is pressure. There will be some pressure present inside the alveoli, which is nothing but our positive end expiratory pressure, almost 5 centimeter of water. So during inspiration, there will be increased in volume and pressure. After the inspiratory curve ends, there will be expiration of the inspired air. So you will have the inspiration and you will have the expiration. So the difference between the inspiratory and expiration, which is called as hysteresis. This is the normal compliance curve of the lungs. But what happening during the
எனக்கு ஒரு டவுட்
சொல்றா
டைடல் வால்யூம் இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணா எப்படி வந்து PaCO2 வந்து எக்ஸ்பயர் ஆகும்? இன்னும் தானே ஏர் அதிகமாகும். அப்ப இன்னும் தானே வந்து அக்குமுலேஷன் ஆஃப் CO2 இருக்கும்.
இல்ல, டைடல் வால்யூம் இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணி ரெஸ்பிரேட்டரி ரேட்டையும் நம்ம இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணணும். ஸோ ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா வந்து உனக்கு டைடல் வால்யூம் இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்றது மூலமா PaO2 லெவலை இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணலாம். ரெஸ்பிரேட்டரி ரேட் இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்றது
டைடல் வால்யூம்ல இன்க்ரீஸ்னா எப்படியுமே உங்களுக்கு வந்து PaO2 வந்து PaCO2 ஐ மீன் ஆல்வியோலர் CO2 அதிகமா இருக்கறனால தானே O2 டிஃப்யூஸ் ஆகலன்னு சொல்றீங்க. அப்ப நீங்க டைடல் வால்யூம் இன்க்ரீஸ் பண்ணாலுமே CO2 வந்து எக்ஸ்பயர் ஆகாது தானே? அப்பயும் திரும்பி வந்து O2 டிஃப்யூஸ் ஆகாது தானே? அந்த மாதிரி நான் கேக்குறேன்.
நான் அதை எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்றேன். இந்த பிரஷர் ஃபுல்லா நடத்துனதுக்கு அப்புறம் அது புரியும்.
சரி, ஓகே.
So இந்த pressures-ல வந்துட்டு we have volume and pressure compliance curve. So in during the emphysema we are having the compliance curve elevated like this, and fibrosis we will be having the compliance curve like this. So this is the normal lung compliance curve. But during the inspiration of air, we are creating some amount of pressure inside the alveolar and airways. How it is created? So normally we are having the airway pressures. So what is the link between the pressure is delta pressure is equal to airflow into resistance. So in airflow, whenever there is a rise in the airflow, you will get rise in the delta pressure. But the resistance is calculated by the formula of 8 rho NL divided by R power 4. So whenever there is radius increased in the radius, automatically this will increase as the airflow as well as it will decrease as the pressure. So in this, L is length of the airway and rho n is viscosity of the air. So finally, through which we can understand that whenever there is increase in the resistance, there will be increased in the airway pressure. So normally this is the normal lung alveoli. So this is the airway. So what is the normal ventilator pressure we are delivering? So the ventilator pressure is needed to bypass the resistive pressure as well as elastic pressure. So what is the resistive pressure? This is given by the airway, that is the respiratory trachea, bronchus and respiratory bronchioles, and the elastic pressure is given by the lung alveoli. So during the mechanical ventilation, during inspiration, some amount of pressure is given into the airway, that is the delta pressure. So this airway pressure is normally higher than the alveoli pressure, and this is airway, this is ventilator. So in order to overcome the airway and alveolar pressure, in order to deliver the some amount of air inside the lung, we need to give the more pressure. So the ventilator pressure has to be higher than the airway pressure and it has to be higher than the alveolar pressure. For example, during normal inspiration, we are taking the air actively, but with the help of mechanical ventilation, we are pushing the air inside the lung through with the help of some amount of pressure. So when you need to push high amount of volume, that is the tidal volume. Whenever you need to increases the tidal volume, it will automatically you need to increases the pressure to deliver the amount of volume inside the lung. So normally at some point in pressure, that is the maximum pressure at which the ventilator pressure is almost equal to the airway. This is known as P peak. So that this is the maximum pressure at the end of inspiration. So at the end of inspiration, the pressure in the ventilator settings as well as airway will be equalized. So we can make a diagram like this. So during the inspiration, we need to give the some amount of pressure inside the lung. So at maximum, you are giving the P peak. Followed that, the airway pressure and alveolar pressure will equalize during the plateau phase, which is known as P plateau. Follow the plateau phase, the alveolar pressure will be more than airway. So this will causing the expiration. So during the mechanical ventilation, we have the inspiratory phase, we have the plateau phase, and we have the expiratory phase. During the inspiration, we are giving some amount of pressure in order to deliver the fixed amount of volume inside the lung. With the help of pressure, the maximum pressure needed to bypass the airway, especially the resistive pressure. So the maximum amount of pressure to bypass the airway is called as P peak. And the amount of pressure that need to be delivered inside the alveoli in order to make the diffusion to be happening. This is called the P plateau. Finally, we are having the expiratory pressure. So whenever you are discuss about the P peak, it is directly proportional to the resistance which is provided by the airway. Because we have already discussed this, the pressure is directly proportional to the resistance and the resistance is directly proportional to the length of the airway and it is indirectly proportional to the radius of the airway. Likewise, whenever there is increased in the resistance of the airway, this can happening because of bronchospasm, anaphylaxis, parasympathetic overactivity, excessive secretion inside the airway, foreign body aspiration, external airway compression. Sometimes the ET tube tip may be occluded. So in mechanical ventilators, like for example, this is the mechanical ventilator. We are having the P pressure, we have the P peak pressure. So here we have the P peak pressure of almost 7. So in this waveform, you can identify that there is during inspiration, the pressure is in the first waveform. During inspiration, the pressure is increasing and it is maximally reaching the peak. That is called the P peak. Normally, this P peak will be less than 31. But in your ventilator setting, during your management of the patient, if you seem to have the P peak of more than 31, it could be because of increased in the resistance. So whenever you are seeing the patients with increased in peak, always think of the patient is going for the bronchospasm or anaphylaxis or excessive secretion will be present or the ET tube might be occluded. So you can practice suction of the ET tube or you can even try soda bicarbonate in order to eliminate the thick secretions present inside the airways. So this will helpful in increasing the FiO2 by decreasing the P peak. Likewise, it will be indirectly proportional to the compliance. Why? We have already discussed this. Pressure and compliance will be indirectly proportional. Whenever there is an increase in compliance, you will automatically have reduced P peak. Whenever the patient is having reduced compliance, you will be having excessive P peak. So the next one is P plateau. So P plateau is nothing but the pressure needed to keep the airway open so that the air present in the airway can diffuse from the to keep the alveoli open, so it can easily diffuse from the alveoli through the alveolar membrane into the pulmonary arteries and pulmonary veins. So the P plateau pressure is indirectly proportional to the compliance. That means whenever the lung compliance is good, we will be having the low amount of P plateau. When the patient's lung compliance is diminished, you will automatically land up in having the excessive P plateau. So whenever you will hit the reduced lung compliance, I have already discussed the restrictive lung diseases where you will having the decreased lung compliance, and whenever there will be increased delta pressure, you will automatically have decreased lung compliance. So delta pressure is equal to intra-alveolar pressure minus intra-pulmonary pressure. So normally the intra-pulmonary pressure is negative. That's why we are having the positive, not like this. So the lung compliance is directly proportional to the difference between the alveolar and pulmonary pressure. That is the transmural pressure. Whenever there is a increase in the alveolar pressure or decrease in the pulmonary pressure, you will end up in having the increased compliance. But something is increasing the pleural cavity. For example, pleural effusion or pneumothorax. So automatically this will increases the intrapulmonary pressure. So the negative pulmonary pressure will go to 0 or positive intrapulmonary pressure. So this will reduces the compliance always, and also it will causes the lung to become collapse because we are not having the normal compliance here. So because of the pleural effusion or pneumothorax, you may have the reduced lung compliance. When the patient is having the pulmonary edema, automatically the lung will going for the passive collapse, and ARDS, pneumonia, fibrosis, all this pathological mechanism will causes the decrease in compliance. So in all these conditions, you will be having increased in P plateau values. So normally in elective ventilators and elective mechanical ventilation, we can see that we can set exactly what we need to be set it. Like we can set the pressure support of 5 and ventilate PEEP of 5. Then you will have the P peak of 10 and P plateau of around 7 to 8. But in the pathologically affected lung, whenever you are trying to ventilate the patients with ARDS, pneumothorax, and pulmonary pleural effusion or fibrosis, you will be having increased in P plateau or increased in the P peak. So by looking into the flow curves and pressure curves in the mechanical settings, whenever you are seeing the normal flow curve like this, you are having the normal P peak and normal P plateau, and the patient is having the normal mechanical ventilation. In spite of that, if you seems to have the excessive peak, means you may have increased in resistance or decreased in compliance. So these patients will be having increased peak with the normal P plateau. But in some conditions, you may have to see like this. That means this patient is having increased P peak as well as increased in the P plateau. That means in these kind of ventilatory images, you can think of increased in resistance because of the causes we have already discussed. In these kind of ventilatory imaging, you can think of decreased in compliance because of the normal pathology happening. So we can understand that P peak is the amount of pressure inside the airway at the end of inspiration. So this is present at the end of inspiration. So in the initial starting of the session, we have discussed that the total lung compliance is equal to end inspiratory minus end expiratory divided by end inspiratory pressure minus end expiratory pressure. So I'm going to substitute this thing with the things we have discussed till now. So the end inspiratory minus end expiratory is nothing but our tidal volume. So whenever you wish to increases the lung compliance, you can increases the tidal volume. So whenever you are going to increases the tidal volume, automatically it will increases in the excessive diffusion of the gases. So excessive diffusion of gases will help in removal of carbon dioxide as well as increased diffusion of oxygen through the alveolar membrane, which will helpful in increasing the oxygenation. So this is the reason behind increase in tidal volume will result in decrease in PaCO2. So we can substitute the end inspiratory pressure with P peak minus the end expiratory pressure is nothing but our P. So we can substitute this here. So we have understand that compliance of the total respiratory system is equal to tidal volume divided by P peak minus P. So if you need to increase the compliance of the lung, that means nothing but in order to increases the PaO2 or correcting the hypoxia, you have different method of executing it by increasing tidal volume or by reducing the P peak or by increasing the positive end expiratory pressure. So by increasing the tidal volume, you can increases the by increasing the tidal volume, you can correct the hypoxia. By managing the causes of resistance, by correcting the causes of resistance, you can improve the oxygenation, or by simply increasing the positive end expiratory pressure, you can improve the oxygenation. So the final concept of this is the basic behind the non-invasive ventilation, which is we are going to discuss today. So what is non-invasive ventilation? So during our previous session, we have discussed about the oxygen delivery devices. So in order to improve the oxygenation and decreasing the work of breathing, we have updated from the nasal mask into NRM, from NRM into HFNO. Even if the patient is not able to control the work of breathing, we will increases the we can switch over from HFNO into the continuous positive airway pressure. Why these patients are having increased work of breathing? Because of the basic mechanism is whenever there is a pathology present in the lung, like ARDS, pneumonia, or pulmonary edema, you will have reduced functional residual capacity. So this will automatically reduces the oxygenation of the tissue during expiration. So normally the minute ventilation is equal to tidal volume into respiratory rate. So we cannot increase the tidal volume in these patients. In physiologically, you cannot increase the tidal volume, but you can increase the respiratory rate to increase the minute ventilation. So these patients will compensately increases the work of breathing in order to create the more negative intrapulmonary pressure, because whenever you are contracting your diaphragm more forcefully, or you are using more forceful contraction of inspiratory muscles, this will cause us the increased chest wall expansion, that will increases the negative intrapulmonary pressure. This will increases the diffusion of air. So this will increase in correcting the hypoxia. So the work of breathing, compensatory rise in the work of breathing is the normal compensatory mechanism happening in any kind of patients in order to correct the hypoxia. But what we are doing here is we are increasing the positive end expiratory pressure, by which we are increasing the compliance and we are decreasing the work of breathing, and we are increasing the functional residual capacity. That means you are giving some amount of pressure throughout the ventilation of the patient. So automatically it will increases the functional residual capacity. So the patient no need to generate excessive force in order to increases the minute ventilation. So automatically the compensatory mechanism will decreased. So the work of breathing will be decreased in all these patients. So normally This is the normal mechanism happening in patients. So normally we can consider the normal pressure of 0 in alveoli. Okay. During inspiration, there will be negative pressure because the diaphragm will contract. It will cause us the negative pressure inside the alveoli, total lung. So you will have the dip in pressure during inspiration, and during expiration, the lung will collapse and there will be increased in surface tension, and the amount, even though the amount of air is tried to escape, some amount of air will be present inside the alveoli. That is nothing but our functional residual capacity. So this functional residual capacity will create some pressure inside the alveoli, which is called our positive end expiratory pressure, which is present at the end of expiration. So normally at the end of expiration, you will be having some amount of pressure around 5 centimeter of water. So this is normal PEEP we are having in our lung mechanism. So we used to have the normal amount of 5 centimeter of water PEEP in our lung mechanism. But with the help of non-invasive ventilation, what we are doing is we are providing the PEEP which is basically present inside the lung, but due to some pathology, the expiratory mechanism is altered. So there will be reduced PEEP in normal lungs. So we are artificially creating the PEEP. By increasing the PEEP, we can correct and overcome all the causes of hypoxia. So we are giving continuous pressure throughout the inspiration as well as expiration. So we are continuously giving pressure. There will be some difference of around 1 centimeter of water, but we are mainly concentrating in increasing the positive end expiratory pressure by giving the CPAP. So CPAP is nothing but almost we are focusing on increasing the positive expiratory pressure. So the pressure you are going to set in the CPAP machine is nothing but PEEP you are going to deliver or you are going to maintain in the alveoli during expiration. So this PEEP will helpful in increasing the oxygenation, increasing the functional residual capacity, decreasing the ventilation perfusion mismatch, decreasing the diffusion mismatch, decreasing the shunt mechanism. So finally, you can correct the hypoxia. So this positive pressure is delivered during inspiration as well as expiration continuously. So this is called continuous positive airway pressure. But we can deliver two kind of pressure to the same patient. For example, if you are giving the some amount of pressure during inspiration, which is slightly higher than which is being delivered during expiration. So this is around 5, this is around 10. So we are giving pressure support during inspiration, which is called as IPAP, inspiratory positive airway pressure, and we are maintaining the some amount of pressure during expiration, which is called expiratory positive airway pressure. So we are maintaining the pressure during expiration and the patient's diaphragm is going for contraction. So he is creating the negative pressure and the machine senses and automatically it will supply the IPAP. Then when it reaches the maximum, the machine senses and it will start providing the IPAP. The patient will going for expiration, but the machine senses it and it will provide the EPAP. So automatically the machine is delivering both IPAP and EPAP. You have to understand that this baseline is not 0 because in CPAP and in BiPAP, we are maintaining almost 5 to 7 centimeter of baseline pressure throughout the ventilation, not like the normal ventilation. So in BiPAP, we are providing the EPAP, which is almost equal to CPAP. So we can simply say PEEP is equal to CPAP, CPAP is equal to EPAP. So the BiPAP is nothing but we are providing both EPAP plus IPAP. So we can substitute EPAP with CPAP. and IPAP with pressure support. So whenever you are setting the pressure support as well as PEEP pressure, so we can always substitute the CPAP with PEEP. So in the ventilatory setting, when you are substituting the PEEP and pressure support, you are making the patient to get BiPAP. Or only you are setting the PEEP with the zero pressure support, you are giving the patients continuous positive airway pressure. So this is the basic behind the non-invasive ventilation. During what are the common indication, but what are the advantages of non-invasive ventilation over the mechanical ventilation? With the help of non-invasive ventilation, you can reduces the work of breathing and you can correct the hypoxia. So you can increasing the oxygenation, and this can be helpful in conscious patients. So these patients can have their feeding, water intake even during the pathological conditions. But mechanically ventilated patients, we need to administer everything through the Rayleigh tube or IV fluids. But these patients can take their own feedings, and these patients we can reduces the aspiration risk, because aspiration risk is more with mechanical ventilation in compared to CPAP. But in compared to normal patients, we are having some amount of aspiration risk in the CPAP machines, and there is no need of sedation for the patients. So you don't need to worry about giving atracurium or some continuous sedation for these patients to maintain the CPAP. And there will be reduced trauma to the respiratory system, because mechanical ventilation is always artificial, but CPAP we are introducing nothing into the respiratory system, so we are reducing the trauma. But what are the contraindication to CPAP? When you should not prefer the patient with the CPAP? When the patient is unconscious, you cannot start the patients with the altered sensorium or unconscious patient with the CPAP, because in CPAP or BiPAP, I have already discussed that whether it is CPAP or BiPAP, the patient has to take or initiate its own breathing. So whenever the patient is able to take his own breath, you can give him CPAP. But the patient is unconscious, whether he is went into the respiratory or cardiac arrest, or a patient is in the altered sensorium, because unconscious and altered sensorium patient, there will be increased risk of aspiration, and we cannot identify whether the patient is going for respiratory arrest or not, because the patient is completely unconscious and we thought that we are given the CPAP and the patient is taking the own breath. But the thing is not, because when you started on CPAP, you are giving continuous pressure into the patient. So this will create some respiratory pattern in the patient. So you can simply give the CPAP to the death patients. You can notice the respiratory chest rise in these patients. So if you start the patient with the CPAP, but the patient is unconscious or altered sensorium, you cannot say whether the patient is alive or dead. So don't ever try to start the patients with the CPAP and unconscious or altered sensorium patients. And patients with respiratory cardiac compression or hemodynamically unstable patient, you cannot start the patient with the CPAP. And contraindicated in the severe UGI bleed, any upper airway obstruction, because the pressure has to reach through the airway. When there is a large foreign body aspiration or foreign body obstruction present in the airway, you cannot prefer these patients. So all these patients, you need to go for mechanical ventilation. So when the patient is requiring mechanical ventilator, we can prefer either non-invasive ventilation or mechanical ventilation. The choice of preference is based on the general condition of the patients. So where patient is conscious, patient is oriented, he is maintaining his blood pressure, but he is not able to maintain his oxygenation, he is having increased work of breathing, we can straight away go for continuous positive airway pressure. That's why in most of the COVID patients and ARDS patients, the initial mechanical ventilator, the initial ventilator of choice is non-invasive ventilation over the mechanical ventilation. So what's happening during CPAP? When you are giving the positive pressure into the alveoli, you are increasing the recruitment of alveoli. So more amount of alveoli is getting activated, because in pulmonary edema or ARDS or pneumonia, some amount of alveoli is going for collapse or fibrosis. So these amount of alveoli are not taking part in ventilation. So this space is called the shunt ventilation, or simply we can call it as dead space ventilation. But by giving the CPAP, you are increasing the availability of alveoli by recruiting the more alveoli, so you can increase the oxygenation. But this can be happening only with the peak pressure of 5 to 12 centimeter of water. So to understand, you need to understand something. For example, this is oxygen saturation of the patient, this is cardiac output of the patient, and this is PEEP of the patient. So whenever you increase the PEEP from 5 to 12, this cardiac output will go down, and automatically the oxygen saturation even may reach up to 99%. But when you expand the PEEP beyond 12 centimeter of water, it will worsen the patient, because this patient will desaturate and patient will go for cardiac arrest. Why? Because I have explained that CPAP is activating the excessive collapsed alveoli. By increasing the recruitment, it increases the oxygenation. But it's up to some extent. Beyond, when the all alveoli are recruited, there is no more alveoli left to be recruited. So you cannot increases the alveolar capacity beyond the available alveoli in the normal lung. So with the help of PEEP, you can recruit almost 100% alveoli, but you cannot recruit more than 100%. So automatically, if you increases the PEEP beyond 12 centimeter, this will increases the excessive pressure in the lung. So automatically, the intra-alveolar pressure is increased very much. It will give the pressure into the heart. So automatically, this will reduces the preload, it will reduces the afterload of left ventricle. How? By increasing the intra-alveolar pressure, it will compress the IVC and SVC, so automatically the preload will decrease. By increasing the intra-alveolar pressure, it will increases the pulmonary pressure, pulmonary vascular pressure. So automatically the right ventricle has to pump harder against the increased pulmonary pressure. So there will be increased in right ventricular pressure. So automatically the interventricular septum is pushed into the left ventricle. This will reduces the end diastolic volume of left ventricle. This will finally reduces the preload as well as afterload of the left ventricle. So automatically the cardiac output is decreased. So this will reduces the blood pressure. So when you expanding the beep beyond something, you will land up the patients to have the hypotension. So you cannot start the patients with the blood pressure of less than 90/60 with the CPAP machines. But the same is the basic behind the CPAP is superior in treating acute pulmonary edema. How? In acute pulmonary edema or congestive cardiac failure or cardiogenic shock, this is helpful, but not other kind of shock. In congestive cardiac failure, the problem is increased in afterload because of increased hypertensive emergency. There will be increased in afterload. The increased afterload is the reason behind the development of acute pulmonary edema or congestive cardiac failure. The PEEP is helpful in decreasing the afterload. So automatically CPAP is the best ventilatory method you can establish the patients with the congestive cardiac failure, acute pulmonary edema or cardiogenic shock, because it decreasing the preload as well as afterload. So what are the common uses of CPAP? The most commonly used reason is for management of acute pulmonary edema, and second most common is correction of hypoxia, that is type 1 respiratory failure. There is no role of CPAP in type 2 respiratory failure, because in type 2 respiratory failure, we don't need to increase the functional respiratory capacity, we don't need to increase the oxygenation, but we need to increase the either tidal volume or we need to increase the respiratory rate. So for COPD patients, or that means hypercapnic hypoxia, BiPAP is the best method then CPAP. But in the non-availability setting, we can consider using CPAP in COPD patients. The third indication is our obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. In obstructive sleep apnea, there will be overgrowth of tonsillar, soft palate, and hard palate tissues. It will occlude the normal airway. So by giving the positive pressure, it will open up the airway and it will increases the oxygenation. And this is the mechanism behind it will be used in preterm infant, where there will be normal pulmonary dysplasia and reduced surfactant. So we can use CPAP in the preterm infant. So these are the common indications for CPAP and BiPAP. Even with the neuromuscular diseases, we can use CPAP and BiPAP machines in all these patients. We can see the machines.
Hello.
So this is the Mindray ventilator normally we are using. We will discuss about the mechanical ventilation in our next session. Before starting the patients on ventilator, you need to understand this. You need to switch on the ventilator. After switching on the ventilator, you will be seeing like this. There will be two options, invasive, which is lighted here, and there will be other option called non-invasive. So you have to select the non-invasive, then you have to select the start ventilation. Then only you can give the patients with CPAP or other kind of ventilation. For example, this is the CPAP mode. You can see in the bottom, like we have VAC, VAC, PAC, VSIMV, PSIMV. All these are invasive modes. But the CPAP or pressure support ventilation is the normal non-invasive mode we can use. So in order to select that, you need to select the non-invasive mode and you need to select the CPAP in the bottom. Then after that, you need to set the things in the CPAP settings. In the settings, you can see that O2, which is FiO2 we are going to set. It will be available from the 21%. You can set up to 100%. The next one is the positive end expiratory pressure, which can be set from the 5 to 12, and the pressure support, which can be set from 5 to 20. But the lowest level that PEEP has to be 5, and the lowest pressure support has to be 5, because the lowest pressure support is helpful in eliminating the resistance present in the airway or AT tube, and the lowest PEEP 5 is needed to keep the alveoli open. And the flow trigger, other things we will discuss in the mechanical ventilation. And the right column, you can see PEEP peak and PEEP plateau values. So normally the PEEP peak is nothing but the combination of PEEP and pressure support. When the PEEP peak is higher than the combination of PEEP and pressure support, you can think of any increase in resistance. As well as when the plateau is also high, you can think of decrease in the compliance. So these are the various type of CPAP mask available in the market. The first one is the face mask, which is most widely used in the most of the ICU setup. The second one is total face mask. In this, we are covering as well as the eyes. So in order to increase the delivery of support and complete delivery of support, we are using the total face mask, but we need to pad the eyes. And the third one is nasal mask. This is most widely accepted method in patients with obstructive sleep apnea, because the patient can able to eat, drink, or even speak with using the nasal mask inbuilt. And the final one is mouthpiece, which we are not using nowadays. And we can even use the nasal pillows, or you can use the helmet type of CPAP mask. There are variety of CPAP masks available. And this is the normal alveoli. This is the collapsed alveoli. So we are increasing the we are recruiting the collapsed alveoli with the help of CPAP. So this is normal CPAP machine, which is used for the obstructive sleep apnea patients. In BiPAP machine, there will be two modes available in the BiPAP machines. So this is about the non-invasive ventilation, and we can wind up the sessions today. We will discuss about the mechanical ventilation in our next session.